In this video, we're talking about string manipulations. C has a rich set of string functions. These functions are applicable to, ascertaining a string instance's length, right? For enabling copying of the string instance to another, enabling comparison of the two string instances, or can concatenate two string instances, or even using these functions to find a subset, right, of a string or substring and concatenate them, right? So there's also a lot of these other utility functions in C. We'll go through some of them. Specifically, we're going to use these functions to perform search, to arrive at substrings, and to concatenate these characters. So there's a variety of different applications that we can do using these functions to enable what we call string manipulations in this language. This is a program that reads text from the keyboard line by line, right, and adds two blanks or two spaces at the beginning of each line before writing it to a file. This example actually illustrates the use of strlen, right, strlen here, that performs the calculations of the length of a string, right? This is a little different than the size of a string. Size of a string includes that null terminator, right? But the length of the string is basically a number of characters inside the string. So we'll take a look at this example in details. So we declare this string buffer. The string buffer has 81 bytes, right? So because C string has a null terminator at the end, this null terminator takes 1 byte, which means we're looking for up to 80 characters from this file. So first thing we do is we declare a file pointer, and a file pointer stores the memory address of that file, name p11-11.txt. So this is a text file. We open it as a read, as a write only, okay, write only. So you can write to this file. So what we do is we do fopen file open, and we are checking to see if the file pointer, right, is null or not. If this is null, meaning there is no memory address associated with it, then we throw in an exception. We said that this file cannot be opened. If this is not null, meaning there is content inside this file, then we proceed with what we have to do, which adds two spaces to the left margin and right line to line. So let's look at that. So as you can see here, this is the exception we're talking about, right? If the file cannot be opened, then you print it to the console and you exit the program, that's it, done. Now, this is the happy path, right? This happy path means the file is able to open. So line 23, it's hit, right? It's executed as long as the file is good, right? So presumably you can open the file, and this is the next thing we're trying to do, is to basically read information off of our standard input. This is the keyboard, right? Keyboard informations. And note that in order for fget to work, right, we have to insert our buffer as the first parameter. The second one is the size of the buffer. The size of the buffer is 81, right, because we have 81 bytes. And the third parameter is the key. Is really just the standard inputs from the user. So let's say if the user enters XYZ, right, as text, right? This is right when this program is running. So this XYZ goes into this strng, right? And immediately, right? And this fgets returns true. So the very first, right, series of things that happens is fputc. So what is that? File put means write, okay? File write character. So assuming that your sp, right, sp out file is totally empty at this point, let's just say this is your entire file, right? It's right here. The first two lines of that files, right? Actually, two characters of that files are spaces. This means one character. So this character is a space right here, right? Space number 1 and space number 2. So there are two spaces here. So this basically occupies the first two bytes of the very first line of your file. And immediately after that, right, we do fputs. So what is that? We're writing what a user just had, right, inside this strng to that file. So if the user has XYZ there, that's 3 more bytes of information, right? That gets inserted by way of fputs, right, string. So the entire string will be written over to it. And then that would be the very first line, right? Line 1. And then you also have line 2, right? Remember, this entire file could have many lines, right? Depends on what the user enters. Okay, so let's look at line 28. This one is a little tricky. It's basically checking to see if the end of that string that user just entered. So we use strlen. Strlen calculates the number of characters this string. Remember, string, right, only has 3 characters so far. Okay, 3 characters in it. Now, string minus 1. This means at this index location. It's basically saying it's basically saying at this index location, very last index location of strng buffer, whether this one is it's a new line or not, right? So sometimes user could be enter a new line, meaning a user enters, right, something, says enter, right? You get the very last being the enter. So if there's no new line simple here, in this case, there is none, right? X, Y, Z, right? There's no, then what you do is you insert this new line at the end of that file. Okay, so this means that at the end, there's 1 here. Assuming Z is not new line, then you enter 1. So this entire line 1 inside this SP, right, out file is space XYZ. The very last one is new line. Now, if the last one the user enter, this Z is a new line, then what will happen is this will be a new line right here. Okay, and this would have been unused in this case. And then your line 1 will be space XY new line, right? That's what this is doing. And then you just keep going. A user enters another one, says ABC, right? Again, we're going to repeat the same logic here. The first 2 characters are always going to be spaces, right? And then you have A, right? B, right? C. And because C itself is not a new line, it will be right through line 29. This new line character will be added at the end of this entire buffer for line 2, right? Now this entire thing is your file, right? And then you keep going with line 3 until the user stops entering anything, right? And then it closes this while loop. And then you have fclose. Fclose is important. This is the file close. You close that whole file at the end and it returns 0, basically returning everything back to the main, and your program exits. So now you are left with is that file that we had from the very beginning, right? With line 1, line 2, line 3. Each line has 2 spaces in front with the characters the user just entered, so on and so forth.